I am so excited because I feel like everyone at some point, when trying to lose weight, has felt judged. Whether it's from external people, like the judgment of walking into a gym and being like, why are you here? Why am I here? Why are you here? You look great. But also internally judging ourselves. Are we doing enough? Is it even worth it? Like, am I even worth it? And everywhere in between. Because quite often we associate vanity with weight. And I will fight anyone on this that beauty and weight are separate. You can be beautiful at any size. You are beautiful at any size, but there does come a time where science holds you accountable. And the goal of all of this is to seek health in a non-judgmental way. And so that's what we're going to dig into today. Before we do, we're going to take a moment and we're going to think about the things that we talked about earlier. Like, we're just going to go to that place personally, just for like 30 seconds, maybe even less, that we sing or we pray to ourselves or we're reminded. Like, I just want to stand in that place for a second. And my hope is that for a moment, 5, 10 seconds, you feel the peace and the love and the relevancy of God. And so with that mindset, we're going to unpack Galatians chapter 1, verse 10. We'll come back in a little bit and do some more, but right now we're going to do Galatians 1:10. So if you got your scripture, we're going to Galatians 1:10. And if you are a place-holding kind of person, we're going to go back and get 6 through 10 in a little bit, but right now we're just in 1:10. Am I now trying to win the approval of men or of God? Or am I trying to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant of God. I'm going to say that one more time. Am I now trying to win the approval of men or of God? Or am I trying to please men? If I were, would I still be chasing my fault? If I were still trying to please men, would I now be a servant of Christ? I would love for you to take a moment. Think about how great you feel when you enter into worship with God. And I want you to contrast that with all of the people's opinions who you listen to when it comes to your body, your size, or your weight loss journey. I will give you a real life example. One of the biggest challenges I had early on with my weight loss was the fact that I was a fat kid in athletic situations. I was the triple crown of inadequacy because I already had braces and glasses. So the fat kid just made it that much better. And it drove me to this place where I was stuck because I felt like I needed to do something because I had just been kicked out of an amusement park for being too fat to ride the go-karts. But I also didn't like people looking at me. And when this all started in 1999, in-home fitness wasn't nearly what it was today or what it is today. So for me, it was either old rusty weights with that chipping paint that would probably give me lead poisoning, or go to a gym. I went to a gym. And I'll never forget, because it was so awkward, you walk into this place where people look great and they just start staring at you and you're like, why? But I knew I had to do something different. And so I decided, of all the things I didn't know how to do, I knew how to do the treadmill. So I jumped on the treadmill, had this little epic inner monologue, and it beeped a few times because it told me I was too fat to be fat, because at that time, the treadmills only went up to 300 pounds. There was a lot more than me. But as I went through the 10, 20 minutes that it took to get done with that workout, all I could think about was, I'm not going to die. Just, I don't want to die. And when I got off, people were still looking at me. And it was so frustrating because in my mind, I was doing the best that I could possibly do. Now, I didn't know at the moment. I quickly realized when I looked in the mirror that, forgive the crassness, my man boobs had popped out because I was wearing a sleeveless shirt that had moved. And so basically, my sleeveless shirt was now an eye, and I was like, hey, hey, just dude chest everywhere. But I was still thinking, like, you know, I've been made fun of my entire life for making bad decisions. And now I'm finally making a good decision, and you all are still making fun of me. And that was unacceptable. And I realized in that moment just how much I had been controlled by the unqualified opinion of others. And I think it's very important to break that down because we listen to a lot of external advice. But have we ever really stopped to think about the experts that we listen to on a daily basis? If they're actually experts. So if your friend Karen is criticizing your weight loss journey, and Karen doesn't have any letters after her name to validate her criticizing your journey, is she really the best person to listen to? But we do that almost on a daily, hourly, minutely basis. Whether it's social media, we see someone else's story and we jump to our own conclusions, or we've got people in our own lives who are either actively or passively sabotaging our own journey. We listen to a lot of people. And more importantly, whether we like to admit it or not, we allow our actions to be dictated by a lot of those other people's either opinions or their perceived opinions. Because quite often, when we look in the mirror, we'll dress in a way that we want to make sure is appropriate for who? Who are we trying to impress? Especially when it comes to our weight loss journey. I myself, and I know many of people who won't power walk in public because they don't want to be made fun of. I know tons of people who won't go to the gym because people will see them exercising. I know people who are afraid to order a salad in public because they don't want to be judged. But is that what we're supposed to be doing with Galatians 1:10? So let's unpack that real quick. In fact, let's go back and bring 6 through 10 into this. So now we're going to go through all of Galatians 6 through 10. So we started with 1:10. Now we're doing Galatians 6 through 10, just a little bit beforehand. I'm astonished that you are so quickly deserting the one who called you by the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel, which is really no gospel at all. Evidently, some people are throwing you into confusion and are trying to pervert the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel should preach a gospel other than the one Christ has preached to you, let him be eternally condemned. As we have already said, so now I say again, if anyone is preaching to you a gospel other than the one you've accepted, let them be eternally condemned. Am I now trying to win the approval of men? Or am I trying to win the approval of God? Or am I trying to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant of Christ. Any judgment that comes from the throne other than Christ really should be dismissed if you're trying to follow Christ. Here's the challenge for a lot of us. Society tells you you're flawed and you're broken and you're wrong. Christ says, I love you just the way you are, but there's still some redemption that needs to happen. Who do we tend to listen to most? More importantly, who do we allow to judge us the most? The people at the gym or Christ? Far too often, it's the people around us. They cause us anxiety. So we'll sit in our cars and we'll just tremble at the thought of going and exercising. Or we'll wear different clothing because we tremble at the idea of being seen in public in, oh my gosh, sweatpants. But if God has called us to health and wellness, and if for some of us, weight loss or self love is the redemption we need to go in, then by whose judgment are we living and are we fearing? So if you really want to overcome the whole idea of being judgmental, you need to first start with, why are you doing this? More importantly, who are you doing this for? I will say this until till literally the day I die. If you lose weight, chances are very good you'll get sexy. However, it is a byproduct, not the reason. If you always chase vanity, like riches, it is something that will always elude you. Because if you check out the Philippines conversion ratio, they can make $5 an hour and be balling. Like I'm thinking about moving to the Philippines because those, like, have you seen how far? It's like 6-to-1, 5-to-1 ratio. Those people are balling. But we'll complain about minimum wage because we is broke here. And so the concept of wealth is very different from the perspective you're taking it. Same with judgment. If you're allowing yourself to be judged by the unqualified opinions of others, this is going to be a very frustrating and challenging journey for you. And I will take it one step further, because this is the conversation I have with my daughter now that she's 8 and we have to have these discussions. How do you tell the difference between a bully and a friend? A bully will tell you what's wrong with you. That's what a bully does. That's literally their job. They're there to tell you what's wrong with you. A friend will also tell you what's wrong with you, but then they'll follow it up by saying, these are the things that I really think you can do to improve it, and I'm going to help support you through that. So if someone comes alongside of you and they're like, you're kind of looking fat in those pants, pay very close attention to what they do next. Because if they just leave it there, that's not really someone worth listening to. But if they come alongside you and they're like, I noticed that those pants might be hurting you, because sometimes denim doesn't give. But that's totally cool, because I've been there before as well. And I did these 3 things, which helped got me in shape, which made my pants fit way better, which made me not have to worry about sitting down. Because, sometimes jeans are like the corsets of the South. Point of all this is that far too often, even as Christians, we take our social cues and our judgment from those around us, which to me is in complete contrast of Galatians 1:10. Because at the end of the day, who should we be trying to please first with our actions? God. And if that's literally the case, whose other judgment should matter? So if God's called us to exercise as a part of our redemption, who cares what the world thinks? Because literally, Blues Brothers style, you're on a mission from God. If God says, I love you just the way you are because I've made you, you are beautiful, then who cares what the internet says? Because if it's different than what God says, literally, they're on a different mission. It's like trying to play by the rules of soccer when you're playing hockey. Totally different ball game. Well, I guess puck game. Terrible analogy, but you get the point. So whenever you are feeling judged, whenever it is against yourself or from the outside world, the very first thing you should do is ask yourself why. Why do these words matter? And is anything that's being said in love? This is not saying that you just discredit some information from the outside world. Some outside information is good. There's this redheaded dude who comes along, tells you Jesus loves you, and maybe you should do these things to help lose weight. He gives pretty solid advice. But the point is he's never making fun of you or judging you. He's saying, hey, we're all struggling with our health and wellness, but here's how I made it better. Maybe you guys should try that. Oh, and by the way, make God first. Like, that'll be a good person to listen to. But there's other people who give good advice. But are they judging you? And do they genuinely want your best interest, or more importantly, Christ's best interest? Which actually kind of comes back to us, controlling what we can control. As we're trying to lose weight, find health, love ourselves, do we actually want what Christ wants? And I think that's where the core of this struggle lies, is the further we get away from God in this process, the more our ears are open to the judgment of the outside world. Point blank, that needs to stop. Literally, we're all here, like all of us right now, because we feel God's called us to this, which means that's the opinion that matters. So to truly stop the judgment cycle of others, and to truly stop the judgment cycle of yourself, starts by asking yourself, how in tune to Galatians 1:10 am I? Because we'll use a sports analogy that fits. If in baseball you keep leading away from that base, it's only a matter of time before they throw the ball back and they tag you out. If you know baseball, that makes sense. If you don't make baseball, the point is don't stray. So how do you stop it once and for all? You start giving Christ the place he deserves in your life. And only he is allowed to judge you. And what's great and freeing is he's going to love you more than he's going to judge you. In fact, he will judge you. Like Stephanie said earlier, we're all going to bow to Jesus. But he gave literally this is a whole instruction manual of God saying, whatever is wrong with you, let's make it better. Here's how. Not bullying, because he said, hey, you're a sinner, but grace. Now let's get to redemption. My challenge for you this week is to genuinely look at what's driving you to want to be better. Is it to overcome some past trauma? Or is it to really jump into the concept of 2 Corinthians 5:17 of saying, I have a new identity. I can't control the past, but I sure dang can control what happens from right now moving on. Right now, like literally right now, is on me. I get to control that. And I want to write a story where God has the pen. I want him to get the glory and I want to reap the benefits. Because that'll happen. But it all starts with Galatians 1:10. Who are you trying to impress? Who are you working for? What are you working towards? If it's an audience of one, like Stephanie said in the chat, well done, thank you. If it's an audience of one, then who cares what the person at the gym thinks? Who cares what your friend thinks? Because you shouldn't be doing this in a way that's offensive to them. You're not going out making yourself all righteous, like, look at me, I'm going to the gym, I'm amazing. No, no. Audience of one. You can let people know what you're doing, that's great. But you're never going to be judged until reckoning day, which means don't let other people put their beliefs on you if you're doing this for Christ. So if you want the freedom that comes with not being judged by yourself or by others, let God do God, but make sure that he's where he needs to be. Don't stray from God, listen to people, and then ask God why he's not there. Keep God first. Keep your calling second. Everything else will fall into place. I'm going to pray in a moment that you accept my challenge for this week of looking at your life as it's been, where you felt judgment, and how you can rectify that by looking at those people or even just ignoring those people, because only one opinion matters. And it's not mine, and it's not theirs. It's God's. And if you dwell in that place, then not only will you be judgment free, you will also find the fruit of the spirits and all the begattens that comes from it. So I challenge you this week to look at your life, see what fear and judgment has kept you from doing, and then ask yourself, is that a Christly judgment or is that a Christly fear? I think I already know the answer. I think you do too. But now that we know, let's truly let the grace and the peace of God dictate our journey and our next steps.